So, what kind of custody arrangements can you have here in Texas? Under the Texas Family Code, there's what we call standard possession. And so, a standard possession order in Texas is the non primary parent has first, third, and fifth weekends, and then some time in the summer and a holiday schedule. That is what you're going to get in most instances in Texas, unless there's some kind of agreement. The courts follow the family code when they're making decisions. So the family code says it's in the best interest of the kids for one parent to have slightly more time and be what most people refer to as the primary parent, and for the other parent to have a possession schedule that's either going to be that standard possession order that I was just talking about, or what we would used to call an expanded standard possession order. It's slightly more. There's handoffs at school instead of, the parents handing off at 6 p.m. And it's a little bit more time for that non-custodial parent. Unless there's an agreement, that's what you're going to end up with almost always. Now, the court may consider other factors. If prior to the breakup, the parents were essentially dividing the duties of raising the kids. Mom's getting up in the morning, getting the kids breakfast, getting them off to school. Dad's picking the kids up from school. He's involved in bath time or getting ready for bed, or he's cooking the dinner and doing those things. And it's essentially, during the working relationship, it was essentially an even split of duties. Then the court might deviate from what's in the code and order a 50-50 possession. That's kind of rare, though. Most of the time, when someone's going to get something other than what's in the family code, is because the parties have reached an agreement. Usually that agreement would be some kind of 50-50 possession schedule. Maybe it's week on, week off. Maybe it's some other deviation, what we would call a 2-2-3 possession schedule, which is a lot more handoffs for the kids. But sometimes when the kids are younger, parties prefer that because there's less time away from the kid. Basically, if the parties agree to a possession schedule, almost always the court's going to agree with the parties and do whatever their agreement is. But if there's no agreement, one party is probably getting a standard possession order. So if the parties can't agree on what the possession schedule is going to be, and we have to go to a contested hearing, that hearing is going to be focused on things like, during the relationship when the parents were still a team, who did what? If one parent can show through testimony and evidence that they're the ones that were the primary caregiver of the kid, that's probably who the court's going to award primary possession to, and the other parent is going to have a standard possession order. So it's going to be fact specific. There's a lot of people that say there's a bias towards giving moms that role. I don't disagree that there might be some lingering bias in there somewhere, but it's also based on testimony and evidence that mom usually was the one that was giving that care during the relationship. It doesn't mean that dad's incapable of doing it. It's just their division of labor and household task during the relationship was that mom was primarily in charge of making sure all the stuff with the kids was done. That's not always the case. So if you go to court and it shows that mom actually wasn't doing anything, mom's, sitting on the couch, watching TV or something while dad's cooking for the kids, making sure their homework's done, getting them in bed at night, taking them to all their activities, the court would, in those instances, award dad primary. So strategies for winning the custody battle. It's going to be about being able to show the court that you were the one that was primarily the caregiver for the kids. So what does that mean? Well, that could mean, you have people that come and testify for you. It could mean not that we want you to live in this constant state of litigation, but it could be about keeping a calendar for a period of time before you start your case to show, kind of what the division of responsibilities were as to the kids. Who takes the kids to the doctor? Who's the one talking to the teacher about parent-teacher conferences? Being able to set yourself up for success in those things can go a pretty long way towards winning that custody battle in the beginning of the case. So what does winning the custody battle really mean? Here in Texas, winning primary possession means you have slightly more time with the kids than the other parent. The non-custodial parent is going to end up with like 47% of the possession time. So it's not wildly disproportionate on who's having the kids more. The other factor that people, I think, look at when talking about winning custody is the right to give and receive child support. The parent that loses the custody battle is pretty much almost always going to be paying child support. The other parent's income is not going to be included in that calculation at all. Texas is behind the times in that respect. Even if the higher wage earner wins the custody case, the other parent is still paying child support in Texas. And the only way you get out of it is if there's an agreement between the parties that child support will be waived. So what are some mistakes as a mom you should avoid in a custody battle? I think kind of a mistake that moms sometimes make is assuming because he was a terrible husband, he's going to be a terrible father too. Those two aren't necessarily related, right? He can be a great dad, going to all the little league, games and all that stuff, but be a terrible spouse. So I think it's, help the kids have a relationship with dad. Another thing I think the courts might frown on is if, you're just unable to see him as a good parent at all. One of my favorite questions in court ask about this. And, when the other side can't say a single thing nice about the other parent, that doesn't look good in court. You had a child with this person. You can't say one thing nice about them. So realizing that even if they have faults as a spouse, they're still a parent. And understanding that helping the kids be excited about going to the other parent's house is really important. You don't want to inject additional conflict and anxiety, with your kids, worrying because they know that you don't want them to go to the other parent's house. That's a mistake I think a lot of parents make. And if it shows in court that you're alienating, different courts treat that different ways, but it could mean the court is inclined to make a change in possession to help that other parent repair their relationship with the kids. So don't alienate. If you have questions about custody as a mom going through this process, we'd be happy to talk to you. Give us a call.